candidates, one of whom is an activist and media mogul. He appears to have several times taken a swipe at the current administration. Since his declaration of interest, many have asked what experience he has. How does he hope to translate his experience in the fourth estate of the realm into the country's #1 job? All these and many more are issues we shall be discussing with our guest in today's edition of the program. Today in the studio we are joined by none other than the CEO of the very popular and in most cases controversial online medium, SAHARA Reporters, who earlier this year joined the campaign for the 2019 presidential candidate, Mr. Omoyele Sowore. Good morning and welcome to Majalisa.
Thank you so much for bringing me on your show. Good morning and a happy new month to Nigerians out there.
Happy new month to you as well. Starting off, how did you venture into the online media business, setting up SAHARA Reporters? Let's start from there.
I started 12 years ago. I was just as I am now, very disappointed about the quality of news reporting that was coming out of Nigeria. I thought a lot was happening. It was not being accurately reported, and I wanted to bring a dimension to it, which was to have citizens report directly on issues affecting them. And so it was aided by technology, the advent of internet, and the deep penetration of internet in Nigeria helped to incentivize my feelings that this could become possible. So that was how it started. It started with a laptop, and 12 years later it became a global phenomenon, as you've described. That's done a lot of breaking stories both at home and abroad, and it's been competing very well in terms of bringing stories that otherwise you'd never have heard about or seen, especially shining light on the dark recesses of power in Nigeria over the last 12 years. We've done quite well, I have to say. I don't like to just praise myself too much, but because it wasn't just me, it was a lot of people who had confidence in that media movement.
Okay, but how would you say the media has gone or has fared, especially in playing its role as a fourth estate of the realm?
I think the media is mixed. You know, the media has done well in some places, but the media has also become part of the real estate from the realm, and that became a problem for us in Nigeria. And it had to do first with media ownership. The politically exposed person started buying up newspapers, creating their own newspapers, obtaining licenses to create newspapers, radio stations, and TV stations. And with that, they were able to control what you saw, what was written about them, and what was written about their friends, and how they wanted news to be covered in general. But, you know, internet became a liberating factor, and that's one department where I have been involved over the last 12 years. And like I have always said, with SAHARA Reporters, we were able to disrupt the media space. And it made a lot of them sit up, made a lot of them really angry with us, because we challenged them in a way that so many of them became irrelevant in the scheme of things. And what then happens is that people go to get news from where they can get credible news, and that, I think, challenged the media a lot. I don't think enough is still being done. They still have a lot more to do because media is still very officious, as I like to say it. They're still running after government people because most of their revenue come from government, you know, through advertisements carried out by, given to them by governors, you know, legislators, and of course through the back door. Most of the things that have been happening within the media. But we must also state that media owners and entrepreneurs have not done a good job in terms of compensation for their staff. So you find a lot of reporters out there just struggling to make ends meet, and in most cases they fall into the traps of politicians who are offering brown envelopes and crumbs to them, and that's likely influence how they write and conduct themselves. A lot of them have also made a lot of money doing that, and have come to legitimize that way of doing business. It's a long story that I wish we have time to talk about at another symposium or show in the future.
But have that syndrome, has it also affected you in one way or another?
No,
the brown envelope syndrome?
No, it hasn't. I have said it several times that you can do legitimate media business without falling into the trap of people who are offering brown envelopes. You can't believe it that with what we've done in the last 12 years, we have been able to show to people that you can do media business without collecting money from anybody to influence what you write and still survive. But it's also because we had credibility, or we have built credibility over the years that it made it possible for us to survive. For example, we got grants, so we had a mixture of how we were getting revenue for SAHARA. We got a lot of grants from people who were supporting free speech across the world, including providing free legal support that could have cost us a lot of money sometimes. We got ad revenues from the usual regular sources of ad revenue, which is driven by traffic. In some cases, we got direct advertisement. But as a rule, SAHARA Reporters doesn't accept government advertisements or government agencies. For example, we don't accept people coming to us and say, I want to celebrate my 70th birthday. I wanted to shut down the newspaper, your front page for us.
You don't do all of that?
We don't do that.
Okay. Let's move on to your presidential bid. What exactly birthed this decision to go for the #1 office?
I have looked at Nigeria over the last 58 years. And in the last 58 years, I've actively participated, politically speaking, in Nigeria's democratic life. When I mean democratic life, Nigeria hasn't been a democratic state per se since in the last 58 years. But I've been working consistently since 1989 when I stepped my foot on the campus of the University of Lagos to bring about democratic rule in the country. So I joined others when I was really young, very, very young. I was 18 at that time, and fought all kinds of battles. We fought against the World Bank, fought against Babangida in 1992. We had a major student riot or student protest known as Babangida Must Go. We did anti-SAR protests. And in 1993, there were democratic elections. The military, led by Babangida, annulled the election, and we had to fight them through up until 1999, when I eventually left Nigeria. For 10 years, between 1989 and 1999, I was just on the street practically fighting and studying at the same time. I ended up getting a degree in geography and planning at the University of Lagos after 6 years because I was expelled twice. I was beaten up by the police everywhere they could find me. I was put in detention several times. At least I counted 8 different times. For times that I slept overnight in detention. I was tortured.
Oh, was because of your activism?
Yes. And when I was at the university, we also had a major problem at the University of Lagos. We had a problem of cultism, the gangs, they called gangs, and we had to fight that as well. So it was a long battle. And in 1999, of course, I left Nigeria to stay in the U.S. and set up SAHARA Reporters after obtaining my master's degree in public administration from Columbia University in New York. So I've been in the New York area for close to 19 years, but also re-engaged myself with Nigeria, mostly through SAHARA Reporters. Also, in those instances, organizing protests. So I was a major participant in Occupy Nigeria in 2012. Some of you have seen the video where I went to shut down a town hall meeting being held by a Nigerian minister who traveled from Nigeria to New York, to explain to us why they were stealing subsidy money. Anyway, so that's been my life. The struggle has been my life, and a decision of this magnitude came from that engagement that I cannot continue, or several other people said to me, we cannot continue to allow borrowed voices, tired people, wicked people, to continue to run our future for us, why we satisfy ourselves with being election monitors, being election reporters, when as a matter of fact we've reached a point where we can organize ourselves and take over the country, put the country on the path of progress, prosperity, and peace, make it a country that is actually worth talking about and not a butt of jokes around the world. Put Nigeria on the map of the world as a responsive and responsible state and not a broken state whose people are just in disarray. So that's what drove me to it. I have seen 7 Nigerian presidents come and go since 1989, starting from Babangida, followed by Shonekan, Abacha, Abdusalami, Obasanjo. After Obasanjo came Yaradua, Goodluck Jonathan, and then President Buhari. So you can imagine I've seen so much and looked at all these guys. They're not as competent as any one of us. I'm saying it to you on public radio. I've challenged them to it. And we keep recycling these same old people. I studied some of these guys in primary school, social studies. You know, people like Adu Ogbe. I knew him in 1979. And this is 2008. He's still Minister of Agriculture. What do you think a country like, where do you think such a country would go to when people with old ideas, expired way of thinking, are trying to run a country with an upwardly mobile young population of 70% of Nigeria, people below the age of 30. So it's just time for us to wake up. I've never been asleep, but I want more people to be woken up to this realization that we can run our country better than this, and we are the only ones who can do it for ourselves and not these old people, because they have nothing to offer.
All right.
Yes.
Some people have said that being a media mogul, being a media expert is quite different from, being actively or completely in politics, especially when it has to do with coming out for the #1 job. Said it's not one that you can actually get a match. It's not really about, being controversial online. When it comes to politics, it's quite different. How would you respond to that?
I would just say, Father, forgive them. Yeah. For they do not understand that it's just a lot more than just being a controversial person. You're seeing a guy who has led a lot of battles in his life. You're seeing a guy who created from nowhere a media platform that could compete anywhere in the world. You're seeing a guy here who's been exposed, who's seen things happen, who's made things happen before. These same people would also turn around and accuse me sometimes of being the one who has helped install government in this country, so who has helped change democratic practices. So it's a lot more than just some of the things you mentioned. It's more about character, it's more about integrity, it's about capacity, it's about competence, and it's also about will, that you need a fighter to be there in the presidency. Let me tell you, the only person who can be considered to be qualified or experienced to be a president, perhaps most, would have been a former president. But look at where we are with 2 former presidents as president. The country is, you can look out of the window what it is. So don't let us internalize the inferiority complex that's because we're young and we don't look like them, or because we have never been former military leaders before, or that we have never stolen very well enough. We are not capable of running a country like this. One other thing they say that you probably haven't mentioned is that Nigeria is complex, complicated. It's a lie. It is a scare button that they make you press within yourself. I say to people, if Nigeria is complex and complicated, why is it so easy to steal in Nigeria? Why is it so easy to rob the country blind? Why is it so easy to run the country like this and get away with it? It's because it's not complicated. It's not even big. In the last 5 months, and I'm saying this on public radio, I've been the only aspirant who is contesting for the presidency of Nigeria. That's including the president of Nigeria, who's been to the most number of states. As of yesterday, we've done 26 to 27 states of the Federation. Visiting places as remote as Zamfara State, Bini Kebbi in Kebbi, Argungu in Kebbi, Sokoto, we've been in Katsina, drove through Katsina, Kano, we've done town hall meetings in Kaduna, we've done in Owerri, in Port Harcourt, we've done in Benin, Akure, Ogbomosho, Oyo, we've done in Ekene, Chief Obafemi Awolowo's hometown, we've done in Abeokuta, done here in Abuja. And also, to add to that, we've also done international engagements, engaging Nigerians, interacting with them, to ask them what is the future you want for yourself. And I can report back to you that all of us the people we've met are united to say, look, we have to do away with the old, ragged, corrupt, tired system. That the recycling that Nigeria has been undergoing is overdue for disengagement. And that's why we're here today, to breathe life into a future that all of us are expecting. We cannot afford not to take this moment. We cannot afford not to do this. This is the right time to do it. As I usually tell people, this is the best time to be alive in Nigeria.
You know, in all of this that you've actually said, looking at the presidents that you've called at every point in time, if they really didn't do well, what exactly is it that you intend to do differently, you know, from what they did? Also, looking at some of the challenges Nigeria is faced with, why it seems as though it is taking too long for some of this to be tackled or settled. What exactly would you do differently to address all of these issues?
Nigeria has been run as a disorganized system that is relying on just people's will and desire and intentions. So a Nigerian president wakes up and he just looks at the country and says, what do they want? I'll give it to them, you know. And sometimes if he doesn't wake up on time, nothing gets done. But what needs to happen is that Nigeria must start organizing itself in a way that we understand what our people need and how it should get to them. And we eliminate the middleman syndrome. We eliminate, you know, this tokenistic gift. Leaders of Nigeria should not see themselves as people who are helping Nigerians.
Is that what it is at the moment?
That's what it is. You know, anything they do something for you, they will go and stand in the place to commission the thing, even when it's not completed.
So until the president is awake, nothing is being done.
In this
until
country,
he approves every single thing.
Almost every single thing has to go through the president. And if the president is not awake and alive to his responsibilities, your economy will tank. It happened with Buhari. For 6 months, the man couldn't appoint his ministers. And Nigeria went into a recession as a result of that, economically speaking. Because there were no ministers. There was nobody working. Everybody was just working on what they referred even to derisively at that time as body language. Which country in the world do you govern with the language of your body, right? So the language that the country understands is proper governance, institutions, systems, right? We don't have any of that. And when they are working only to the advantage of the people in power. When they are not working, they are working to the disadvantage of people who are not in power. Right? So until we get rid of all that, we are going nowhere. And for us to do it, you have to put people in position of authority who are capable of doing it. Forget about, oh, you know, it's because we are young. That's not the only reason why you should be president. Being young is not the only reason why someone should be elected as president. Otherwise, we might as well elect the young ones who have been in position of authority, who are now climbing trees and going into wilderness every day. But it has to do with a lot more than that. That's why I'm very clear about what needs to happen in this country. I have spelled them out in certain documents that's on our website. We have a manifesto. We have a bunch of programs that we refer to as SPICER, which will make security our priority, power, electricity. You don't get it right with electricity, forget about economy, infrastructure, fight corruption, create an economy that speaks to progress in Nigeria, that's about Nigerians, not economies that exist in PowerPoint presentations or the type that is all about the size of foreign reserve as opposed to the size of our internal happiness. You know, so those are things that must be taken care of, that we should start addressing: health, education, agriculture, tourism. We call it SPICER heat. And these are just a few things that we have spelled out, but there's a lot of things that are ancillary to that, are connected to making Nigeria work for Nigerians, that we have already spelled out. Part of the reason why I traveled extensively in Nigeria is to see for myself so many of the things that people need. A need assessment tour. At the town hall meetings, I stood in front of people for hours answering questions. And you'll be surprised how many people have questions for you, including the people that we overlook and talk over all the time. I didn't go to rallies, because rallies are places you go to, they hold up your hand and everybody shout, you know, and then they distribute some money and you leave. That is not engagement as far as I'm concerned. I've done town hall engagements where we have people sit down, we are like this close, and they're asking questions, and after that we shake hands, and they say, "Oh, we'll see you again." And we engage through social media as well. I have broadcasts on Facebook all the time. I take questions from people, and I've also engaged with even other presidential aspirants. We had a meeting of 14 young, so-called young presidential aspirants yesterday, where we started to discuss how some of us can unite or create a united front so that we don't have a division that will make us not get the desired results in 2019.
You made mention of some of the issues in Nigeria. You made mention of electricity. You said if electricity is not fixed, forget about development in Nigeria. Now, looking at the state of the electricity system in Nigeria at the moment and how it is that this issue is being tackled, it is almost becoming seemingly impossible for electricity to be fixed in Nigeria. Are you fully aware of what exactly is responsible for that state?
Yes.
Are you aware of what exactly it will take, and how do you intend to go about it?
Let me explain something to you. You cannot get electricity when you are voting for people who are selling generators or generator suppliers. That's what Nigeria has been doing. This might sound like an analogy that it's weird, but that's the truth. And it's not just a soundbite. It's the reality that we are facing, that people who are supposed to supply you electricity are the same people who are in the business of circulating darkness. So how can you get electricity when you keep electing them into office? You know, as a media person, that at one time, and this has been officially even stated again by President Buhari, that we spent $16 billion in creating, wasted, trying to, get electricity to the level that it should be. So it was $16 sunk into buying darkness for us. What should I have done with $16 billion? I would have provided electricity not only in Nigeria, but to the rest of West Africa. I'll be selling electricity right now. But what should we be doing with electricity is looking at long-term and short-term solutions to it. What are the short-term solutions? We have solar energy now becoming, a major player in electricity supply in the world. You have mini grids. We need to break our national grid into mini grids so that people can, have electrical supply without having to supply the national grid first before it is recirculated back or retransmitted and distributed to ordinary people. If Lagos wants to have electricity, they should be able to control how they get electricity. And you put all these mixes together, that will put us quickly and rapidly. We should not be generating less than 24 megawatts of electricity within 3 years. And I promise you that 4,500 of that will come from renewable energy, solar, right? And with gas, we have over 9 billion deposit of gas, the cubic feet deposit of gas in the Ogoni land alone that's untapped. But you can't go to Ogoni today without first of all cleaning up what Shell did over there. So, and bringing about peace in Niger Delta. That can fire a lot in terms of megawatts or gigawatts of electricity for us if we get it right, if nobody's cutting up the pipelines. And in case the pipelines come under attack, you can also transport gas with trucks, by the way, to places where they are needed to supply electricity into the into Nigeria. You have coal in Enugu. Coal is not particularly the best way to generate electricity, but if we look at the US, they've been able to develop clean coal technology that can be used also to provide electricity. You still have the hydroelectrical power systems, but they need to be fixed. But what we keep doing in Nigeria is that we do our things the same way every year, every election cycle, every budget cycle, and we expect a different result. If you go and find out what has happened to all of those power plants now, they are getting investments, but they're being stolen. And the moment you keep stealing what is meant for electricity, you get darkness in return. When you steal for health, you get sickness in return. When you steal money meant for education, you get ignorance in return for it. You steal money meant for infrastructure, you get debt on your roads. So you look at all of this. It is easy if you have the right guy there who says, look, this is an investment. And good news is that technology is helping us a lot to track so many of these things. For example, these days you can even track how much electricity we're generating in Nigeria on a daily basis, and you can know where the faults are. But when you have people who are conspiring on a daily basis to deny you electricity. You can't have electricity because they are the ones who are investing in bringing those twisted metals into the country, called generators. I better pass your own, or what do they call it? That's killing people with fumes all the time. So that's just the story of our electricity. We all know it. We know why we are in the dark. It's because some people decided deliberately to put us in the dark. It's not because we have not made the right investment, but we have not made the right investment in the leadership that can turn things around for us.
Now, let's look at the issue of popularity. Do you think your popularity can match that of other presidential aspirants? Taking a look at the likes of Buhari and Atiku. Will that be a concern for you?
No, I don't have a concern about them. I foresee a situation where we'll get to a point and Buhari may not even run, because it will be clear to him that he will be confronted with imminent disgrace. Atiku is not a problem. Atiku has been a perpetual presidential candidate in Nigeria. He's never won elections before. You know, the only time he won election was in 1999 and 2003 with Obasanjo. You know, and you know how they won the election. So Nigeria has moved on beyond them. But most importantly, Nigeria is moving away from these characters who have been known to be responsible for the state of Nigeria, the condition that we are in, this very pitiable condition that we are in today. And they are coming back to ask us to reward them with social promotion or political promotion by offering them the presidency of a country that they have spent their entire life destroying. And that's where they will meet their imminent disgrace. There's awareness, there's consciousness, and a revolutionary favor in the country that will make their popularity fade away in a matter of weeks from now. So I have no doubt. Buhari has lost elections before, 3 times, and he's about to lose the 4th time.
Under what party are you coming out?
It will be declared on August 15, 2018.
The party you are coming under?
Yes, yes.
Okay. But then looking at, you know, some other issues some people have raised, they said you've actually spent more time abroad than you have spent in Nigeria, so you might not have full understanding of how things work around here. I know you mentioned the fact that you have traveled to several parts of the country in recent time, but then some people are still of the opinion that you might not fully have an understanding of how things operate around here, especially politically and otherwise, because of how far traveled you've been.
The same people can be advised and cautioned to say that in the last 12 years, if you heard of any major political development in Nigeria, it probably came from me. Through SAHARA reporters. So that tells you something.
Now, there was a meeting between you and other presidential aspirants where an alliance was agreed upon. What brought about the meeting and how did it end?
It ended well. We've had meetings the last 48 hours, starting from the day before yesterday. And yesterday we had an enlarged meeting at Chelsea Hotel with about 14 presidential aspirants, mostly people with fresh ideas. And we agreed that we would form a united front and not let our individual ambitions stand in the way of a united front to present a formidable force against the old guards in the country. So it went well, and we've had 3 of such meetings in the last 48 hours, and came out with a communique that should be circulated by today. It was very good. You know, it was also very good to meet some of these aspirants. All of us have been speaking the same language. It doesn't mean that we are all sleeping and turning our heads in the same direction, but it's a great start.
Many Nigerians over time have been concerned about the fact that when it comes to the period of campaigning, presidential aspirants especially, you know, have the solution to several challenges during campaigns, but then when they get into power, when they get into that position, it seems as though those things they said they knew while they were contesting before they became, you know, president, when they get there, it seems as though these things become either difficult or becomes impossible. Or is it that when they get there, it was different from how they saw it while they were outside. When they got in, they saw that the system is not really as easy as they thought. And that's why most of the times they cannot meet up with the promises that they made during campaigns.
It's mostly how they get there.
How they get there.
Yes. When people purchase the presidency and hand it over to someone who doesn't know what he's doing, and they control how those people operate within when they're in office, then the outcome you get is return on investment to the people who purchase the presidency to them. And that's why we have come as a movement. That's why we are raising funds transparently online and by asking Nigerians to support us so that we can get rid of the Godfathers. What do you think has been Nigeria's biggest problem in the last 19 years of our democratic experiment or experience? It's been the role of Godfathers, people who are not elected, who are in charge. We call them cabal sometimes. And they have been the ones holding Nigeria by the jugular. You know, some of them are within the economic sector. Some of them are within the political sector. Some of them are even within the religious sector. All of these guys combined together are the ones who are holding the destiny of Nigeria to ransom. And that's why I've said clearly, it's about how you get there. If you get them through a crooked means, you cannot produce. And most times, they deliberately choose the dumbest amongst us to run the country for us. I mean, these cabals, so that the person will not have the independence of mind to act.
So are you saying Buhari is the dumbest?
Oh my goodness, you should ask everybody who's been working with him.
What do you think?
The impression I get is that sometimes he doesn't even know where he is, or that he doesn't know what to do. But they like him because then this dumb people are easy to control. You just tell them what to do. You know, it's just like marionettes. You just control them from. And this country has been able to expose the people who are behind Buhari and who are.
For a person like Buhari, he said he's one who will be difficult to control. So you mean he himself is also being controlled?
Of course.
What is controlling him?
Ask his wife.
She's one of them?
She said it, that people are controlling him. She came out publicly and said, this is not the husband that I married. And even threatened not to vote for him for a second time. I mean, you saw that happen on BBC. So, yes, there's ample evidence to show that he's completely under some kind of spell.
Now, looking at all these cabals you've talked about, do you think you have what it takes to match them? Being that the system also is seemingly being controlled by these people you're talking about. So do you have what it takes to break through them and eventually match them and conquer?
What have I done in the last 12 years through SAHARA reporters is fighting cabals. I fought a cabal that tried to impose Obasanjo on Nigeria through his third-term agenda. After Obasanjo left, there was a cabal known as the Yaradua cabal, led by his wife. It was through SAHARA reporters that this cabal was exposed and finally dismantled. After Yaradua left, Jonathan came with his own cabal, led by Desani and several other people in the business community, some of them in the religious community. They were buying jets left, right, and center, all of them, you know, stealing oil money. We were the ones that exposed them. And we have scars to show for it. When Buhari came, he came with his own cabal. We fought and fought. When I came with SAHARA reporters last year, what did they do? They seized all the money that I came with because the cabals don't want me to be on ground.
And you mentioned those cabals in this administration.
Oh, you know, it's a lot of them. I think, what's the chief of staff? Abakari is one of the cabals. There's the man who owns Bullet Construction. I've forgotten his name now, who is one of the cabals. You know, most of them are from Kaduna. You go to SAHARA reporters, Google cabal, you see all their names. We mentioned all their names. They know themselves, and we always expose these cabals. But they also have them in the oil sector. They have their own cabals in the banking sector. They have them in the religious sector. You know, they have them everywhere, and we've always identified them. You know, and Buhari's wife also identified them. We also, at the point, even obtained an audio recording of these people, the cabal, attacking Buhari's wife and calling her suicide bomber. You know, at that time when Buhari was ensconced in the UK, treating himself of an unknown disease. So the cabals are known all over the place. We know them, and the cabals know us. And we've been fighting and fighting, but the only way to fight them to finish is to vote them out of office. Because it can be very interesting how powerless these cabal people are the moment they're out of office. If you see some of the Yaradua cabal people now, you won't even recognize. Some of them you look at as if a trailer just ran over them. They're broke and in one corner. Sometimes they go to events and they'll be begging MCs, please can you introduce me? I'm former this and former that. They are not as powerful as we think, as long as we look them in the eyeball and say, look, enough is enough and we're tired of this nonsense.
But these people you mentioned, how do you get to prove that they are actually the cabals? How do you prove it?
I've told you, what better proof can you have than the wife of the president saying, these people are the people destroying my husband's government. That woman goes to bed every night, hopefully in the other room with the president, and they wake up together. If she can tell you categorically, and it's not been disproved. If we can tell you categorically and they've not been disproved, we brought evidence upon evidence, including the evidence of how these cabal people were appointing illegally, getting employment letters at the Central Bank of Nigeria for their people, how they're getting employment into other agencies of government. We brought evidence of how cabal was using their position to reduce MTN fines and collecting bribes. We brought evidence of cabal people, trading money. We brought evidence of what they were doing in the Senate. We brought evidence of what they were doing with corrupt people. How they're influencing who should get arrested and who should not get arrested, how they're influencing judges. I don't know what else to tell you. This is what I've done for 12 years, and we've done particularly a good job at exposing the cabal under this government. And like I said, we have scars to show for it.
All right. Finally, before we let you go, the issue of zoning. Is it one you're concerned about,
No.
being that it is going to the north?
Zoning is lazy man's approach to electioneering in Nigeria. There's nothing like zoning. They use zoning when they're incapable of winning it. It shows to you that they don't have popular appeal across the country. So they hide behind zoning to say, oh, it's our turn, so please let us finish the tenure. We have designed another zone now. That's zone 7. And the zone of people who have been cheated, abandoned, abused, and decimated by the 6 other geopolitical zones. It's all of us combined together. We are uniting and taking over our destinies through 2019 political process. So there is no zoning. The zoning thing is, it's baloney, it's BS. It was designed to fool people, to take advantage of people who ordinarily we should not. And I think a lot of people have discovered it to be a fluke. We've traveled around the country, nobody has ever spoken to me about zoning. Maybe only once did I hear from a journalist in Kano. Nobody's asked me about my religion, nobody's even asking me about my ethnicity. These are ways through which they divided us and used their opportunity to divide the spoils of office. When they are sharing money, when they are stealing, there's no zoning. When they are destroying this country, there's no zoning. It is when it is time to fool us that they bring out the zoning formula. They should call it a sharing formula instead. There's no zoning.
All right.
I don't give a dime about it.
Thank you so much. We have him speaking with the CEO, SAHARA Reporters, and also he is a presidential candidate ahead of 2019, Mr. Omoyele Sowore. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, and Martin Lisa, thank you for being part of it.
Thank you.
Abuja, we can take your phone calls right now, 090-30,899, that's 090-30,899, numbers to call. You can also send in WhatsApp messages using the same phone number via our WhatsApp portal, that's 090-30,899. We'll take a few messages. And also, take a few calls before we call it a wrap. This one here on the WhatsApp says, what Nigeria needs is a new set of people that have not tested this blood money before. They include your name. This one said it have said it severally, that if Nigeria is not restructured to true federalism, things will not tend to work under a constitution and structure handed over to us by those who once truncated it. The earlier we restructure, the better it will work for us all. Ikechukwu in Abuja. Good morning. Good morning to you. What's your name? Uche, let's hear you.
Thank you. My advice to look my institution is the way of this life. You know, here in this country, they want to make something good. The government should be saying GSS and police after you. So, all I can report to help you to achieve the same. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Hello?
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. What's your name?
My name is Edward Stella from the University.
All right, welcome. 1 minute.
I want to talk to the CEO of this SAHARA reporter.
Go ahead.
Okay, I must say that you have an excellent analyst. You have A1 on that. I must applaud you for that. And the second thing, now I want to ask you this question. You know the problems of this country. From your analysis, I saw you know it all. But what have you done before you become the president of this country? What have you done to help the poor people in this country? What have you done to help the ordinary masses? Or did you when you become the president before you start helping the people? I just want to know if you have done anything at all to help the people before now, because the sentence begins at home.
Can you respond to that?
No, I think Nigerians have internalized so much of government inefficiency. They think it's a job of everybody to go and, create schools, to give scholarship, and until you have done some of those tokenistic things, they don't see you as having done anything. But the way I would put it is this: if there's any time that a report prevented a public official from getting away with his loot, or exposed somebody who's going to get assassinated, or exposed somebody who got assassinated or who rigged the election, you've done a lot for this country. And I think that's what SAHARA Reporters has done a lot of in the last 12 years. And I cannot start to read to you things that we've done that have led to a lot of successes in exposing corruption in governance, increased our ability or expanded our democratic space and protected our democracy, including in 2014, for example, exposing the rigging of the election in Ekiti, which was a strategy they would have used in rigging Buhari out of office in 2015. And several other things, you heard about the BMW scandal with Stella Odua that were exposed, and you would not believe that since that scandal was exposed, there hasn't been any major air crash in Nigeria. You can't believe that.
Oh.
Yes.
All right, let's take other calls. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning to you. What's your name?
My name is John Yoko, calling from Abuja.
John.
From
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been listening to your program. It's fantastic, honestly.
Thank you.
I am so happy of the man in the studio. He's saying a lot of things that are affecting this country, which is proper. I just pray that God will help him and also study him more as he's going around the country to sensitize people and also let people know how important it is for him to be the president of this country. A lot of all these things, all these presidents that we have now, is turnaround is there. This rulers when we were kids and all that kind of thing, and they're the ones still coming up and down, turning up and down, coming again rulers and little things. So we pray that God will help him and see him through whatever they're doing, that God help him.
All right. Thank you. Hello. Hi, good morning. Fine, thank you. What's your name? 50 miles. Let's hear you. Fine.
I want to salute Mr. Sowore. I want to salute him. This is the kind of thing we want to hear. The kind of things you listen that you need to have group in this country. Now, I will not go into detail. The election that is coming will be rigged electronically.
How do you say so? How do you know that?
Give Mr. Sowore my number if you like. I won't say more than this. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Let's see how that goes. At this point, that's as much that we can take. I'm just sorry. There are many WhatsApp messages and calls coming in. Phone lines are still buzzing, but that's much that we can do today. Thank you so much, Mr. Omoyele Sowore. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for
Abuja, thank you as well for being a part of it. We'll do it again same time tomorrow. Majalisa will be back 8 o'clock right here on this dial, and we'll continue to bring you national issues, just as we care to keep you informed and also get you educated. My name is Owigo. I'll be back same time.